Li Jun sat in his chair and looked around the huge meeting room. The walls were made of some kind of blue crystal that glowed softly. The ceiling was so high he could barely see it. Hundreds of different alien beings filled the room talking in their strange languages. The sounds mixed together like a noisy soup of clicks, whistles, and growls. He had been coming to these meetings for 3 whole months. 3 months of sitting here listening to the same boring talks. 3 months of hearing aliens say no to everything humans asked for. 3 months of being treated like a child who did not understand grown-up things. Park. Hana sat next to him. Her job was to help with military matters. She was wearing her dark blue uniform with shiny buttons. She kept writing notes on her small computer, but Li Jun could see she was getting angry. Her face was red and her jaw was tight. She had stopped writing and was just staring at the aliens with hard eyes. The meeting today was about trade. Humans wanted to sell their goods in alien markets. They wanted to buy alien technology that could help Earth become stronger. They wanted fair prices for human products like medicine and computer parts. But every time a human spoke, the aliens would shake their heads or make rude sounds. The Altarians were the worst. They had blue skin and 4 arms, and they always acted like they knew everything better than everyone else. Their leader was called Vex Moore, and he had a voice like grinding metal. When humans talked about their new inventions, Vex Moore would laugh and say humans were too young to understand real science. The crystalline people were almost as bad. They looked like walking diamonds with bright lights inside them. They never said much. But when they did talk, it was to say human ideas were simple and boring. They acted like humans were bugs that had learned to fly ships by accident. Even the Orion Collective was not helping. The Orion people looked the most like humans, except they had gray skin and no hair. They were supposed to be peaceful and fair, but they never voted to help humans when important decisions were made. They just sat there quietly and let the other aliens do whatever they wanted. Li Jun remembered. The first time he came to these meetings, he had been so excited to represent Earth. He thought the aliens would welcome humans with open arms. He thought they would want to learn about human culture and share their own knowledge. He thought they would become friends and work together to make the galaxy a better place. He was wrong. Very wrong. The aliens saw humans as newcomers who did not deserve respect. They thought humans were lucky to even be allowed in the meeting room. They acted like humans should be grateful just to listen to alien conversations. Most of the time they would not even let humans speak during important votes. Today was supposed to be different. Today humans were asking for something very important. They wanted to have a seat on the Security Council. The Security Council made decisions about wars and peace between different alien races. Humans thought they deserved a voice. Because Earth had helped solve many conflicts in the past few years, human soldiers had fought alongside alien troops in 3 different wars. Human doctors had helped cure diseases that were killing millions of alien civilians. Human engineers had built space stations that made trade between worlds much easier. Human scientists had discovered new ways to grow food on planets that used to be too dry or too cold. But when Li Jun stood up to present the human request, the aliens barely listened. Vex Moore was looking at his communication device. The crystal people were having their own quiet conversation in their light language. The Orion representatives were staring at the ceiling like they were bored. Li Jun spoke clearly and calmly. He explained all the ways humans had helped the galaxy. He talked about human contributions to science and medicine and engineering. He reminded them that Earth had never started a war or broken a peace treaty. He said humans just wanted to be treated as equals. When he finished speaking, the room was quiet for exactly 3 seconds. Then, Vex Moore started laughing. It was not a happy laugh. It was the kind of laugh that made Li Jun feel small and stupid. Other aliens joined in. The crystal people made tinkling sounds like breaking glass. The Orion people made soft huffing noises. Vex Moore stood up on his 4 legs and looked down at Li Jun. His 4 arms moved like he was conducting an orchestra of mockery. He said humans were babies who had just learned to walk among the stars. He said giving humans a Security Council seat would be like giving weapons to children. He said maybe in 1,000 years humans might be ready for real responsibility. The voting began. Li Jun already knew what would happen. but he watched anyway. The big screen showed the results as they came. In the vote was to decide if humans could join the Security Council. Altarian Coalition voted. No Crystal Federation voted no. Gaseous Unity voted no. Mechanical Collective voted no. Even the Peaceful Orion Collective voted no. Only the Small Trader, Alliance and the Independent Worlds voted yes. The final count was 18 no votes and only 2 yes votes. Park Hana made a small, angry sound next to him. She had closed her computer and was gripping her hands together so tight her knuckles were. White Li Jun could see she wanted to stand up and shout at all the aliens, but that would not help anything. It would just make them think humans were emotional and childish. Something cold and hard formed in Li Jun's chest. It was not anger exactly. It was more like a door closing inside his mind. For 3 months he had tried to be patient, he had tried to be reasonable, he had tried to show the aliens that humans were worthy partners, but nothing worked. The aliens did not see humans as equals. They saw humans as annoying pets who had learned some clever tricks. They thought Earth was a backward planet full of primitive creatures who got lucky with technology. They believed humans should be grateful for any small scraps of attention they are. Great alien civilizations threw their way. Li Jun realized something important in that moment. The aliens would never change their minds. It did not matter what humans accomplished or how much they helped other species. The aliens had decided humans were inferior, and nothing would change that decision. He thought about all the human ships that were protecting alien trade routes right now. He thought about human doctors working in alien hospitals. He thought about human scientists sharing their discoveries freely with alien researchers. He thought about human diplomats working day and night to prevent wars between alien species. All of that work, all of that help, all of that friendship. And this is what humans got in return. Laughter and dismissal and votes that said humans were not good enough. Li Jun stood up slowly. His movement was so sudden and unexpected that the entire room went quiet. Even Vex Moore stopped talking. All the aliens turned to look at him. Some seemed curious. Others looked annoyed that a human had interrupted their important meeting. Li Jun looked around the room one last time. He looked at every alien face. He memorized their expressions of superiority and dismissal. He wanted to remember this moment, forever. Then he spoke in a voice that was calm and steady and carried clearly across the huge room. The human delegation withdraws from these negotiations. We also formally withdraw from the Galactic Council effective immediately. The silence that followed was complete. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. It was like the entire galaxy had stopped spinning for a moment. Park Hana was already standing. She gathered up their papers and documents with quick, efficient movements. Her face showed no emotion, but Li Jun could see satisfaction in her eyes. She had been wanting to do this for weeks. Some aliens started making confused noises. Others began talking loudly in their own languages. A few seemed angry that humans would dare to leave without permission. But Li Jun did not care what they thought anymore. He had tried patience. He had tried diplomacy. He had tried being reasonable. Now it was time to try something completely different. Li Jun and Park Hana walked toward the exit. There, footsteps echoed in the huge room. Behind them, the aliens were getting louder and more confused. They probably thought this was just a temporary tantrum. They probably expected humans to come back in a few days begging to be readmitted. They were wrong again as they reached the door. Li Jun turned back one last time. He wanted to say something dramatic, something that would make the aliens understand what they had just lost, but he realized words would not matter. These aliens would only understand action, so he said nothing. He just walked through the door with Park Hana following behind him. The age of human patience was over. Captain Kim Tae stood on the bridge of his ship looking out at the empty space around him. His vessel was called the Determination, and it was one of the fastest ships in the human fleet. The stars looked different out here in the unknown regions of the galaxy. No alien ships had ever come this far from the civilized worlds. 3 weeks had passed since Li Jun walked out of the Galactic Council meeting. 3 weeks since humanity had officially withdrawn from galactic politics. Most of the galaxy had barely noticed. The aliens were still having their meetings, still making their trade deals, still acting like nothing had changed. But Kim Tae knew better. He was following orders that had come from the highest levels of Earth government. Orders that were so secret only a few hundred humans in the entire galaxy knew about them. The orders were simple, but their meaning was huge. Find places where humans could build new bases far from alien eyes. His crew worked quietly around him. They were all volunteers who had signed up for missions they could not talk about to their families. Engineer Lim. So was checking the engines for the third time today. She wanted to make sure they could jump to faster than light speed at any moment. Navigator Baek Jin was studying star charts of regions that had never been explored by any known species. The ship's computer made a soft beeping sound. Kim Tae looked at the screen and smiled. They had found what they were looking for, a small solar system with 3 rocky planets and an asteroid belt rich in metals. The system was perfect for what they needed. It was far from any trade routes, it had plenty of raw materials, and most importantly, no alien government claimed it. Kim Tae gave the order to start building. The determination launched dozens of small robot ships that began collecting rocks and metals from the asteroids. Within hours, they were constructing the first human supply depot that existed completely outside of galactic civilization. Similar scenes were happening all across the galaxy. Human ships were quietly disappearing from the normal space lanes that aliens used for travel. Captain Park Yu was establishing a hidden base near the edge of the Spiral Arm Commander. Lee Da was setting up a secret communication station in the Dark Nebula. Captain Song Mi was building a research facility on a dead world that alien sensors could not detect back on Luna Station above Earth. Dr. Yoon Soo was working on projects that would have amazed the aliens if they had known about them. The physics laboratory was buzzing with activity day and night. Dr. Yoon had been studying problems that alien scientists said were impossible to solve. The biggest problem was communication. Alien species could only talk to each other by sending radio signals through space. These signals took years to travel between distant star systems. Dr. Yoon had been working on something called quantum entanglement communication. It would let humans talk instantly across any distance no matter how far apart they were. The alien scientists had laughed when humans first mentioned this idea. They said it violated the basic laws of physics. They said humans were too primitive to understand why it could never work. But Dr. Yoon had already solved the mathematical equations. Her team was now building the first working prototype. In another part of the laboratory, Dr. Kim Hae was developing new kinds of energy shields. The current alien technology could barely protect small fighter ships. Dr. Kim was creating shields that could protect entire fleets of large vessels. The aliens had said this was impossible because it would require too much power. Dr. Kim had found a way to use the energy from stars themselves to power the shields. Meanwhile, on Mars Colony, Administrator Cho Bin was implementing the most important part of humanity's new strategy: complete economic independence. For decades, human colonies had depended on alien suppliers. For many essential goods, they bought food processing equipment from the Crystal Federation. They purchased medical supplies from the Orion Collective. They imported rare metals from the Altarian Coalition. But Chobin was changing all of that. Human factories were working around the clock to build everything humans needed. Without any alien help, new farms were being established to grow all the food human colonies required. Mining operations were expanding to extract every mineral and metal humans could possibly use. The plan was ambitious, but humans had advantages that aliens did not understand. Humans learned faster than most alien species. They adapted to new situations more quickly. They were willing to work together in ways that competing alien governments could not manage. The changes were subtle at first. Alien traders began noticing that human merchant ships were not following their usual routes. Human vessels that normally carried cargo between alien worlds had simply vanished from the shipping lanes. Some aliens assumed the ships had been destroyed in accidents. Others thought humans were just being inefficient with their transportation. But the truth was more systematic than that. Every human ship was being recalled to human-controlled space. Every human crew was being reassigned to secret missions. Every human resource was being redirected toward building an independent civilization that could survive without any alien help on the outer rim of the galaxy where The real dangers lurked. Things were changing too. For years, human patrol fleets had been protecting the border regions from threats that the Galactic Council refused to acknowledge. Strange mechanical ships had been probing the edges of civilized space. They came from the dark regions beyond the known galaxy, and they seemed to be studying alien defenses. The aliens called these intruders the Devourers, because they seemed to consume everything they encountered. Human patrol ships had been fighting small battles with Devourer scouts for months, always pushing them back into the unknown regions, always preventing them from gathering information about the inner systems. But now, those human patrol ships were gone. Captain Han Do had received orders to abandon his position at the Kepler border station. His fleet of 12 fast attack ships had been reassigned to escort supply convoys to the new secret human settlements. All along the outer rim, human early warning systems were going. Dark human patrol routes were being abandoned. Human defense posts were being evacuated. The aliens did not notice this either. They had always assumed the outer rim was safe because nothing bad had ever happened there. The fact that nothing bad had happened was entirely due to human vigilance, but the aliens had never bothered to learn this. Intelligence agent Kang Su was monitoring alien communications from a hidden listening post in neutral space. Her job was to watch how the aliens reacted. To humanity's withdrawal so far, the reaction was exactly what human planners had expected. Most aliens thought the human withdrawal was temporary. They expected humans to come crawling back within a few weeks, begging to be readmitted to galactic civilization. Some alien leaders were actually happy that the annoying humans were gone. They thought this would make their meetings more efficient and their decisions easier. A few aliens were starting to worry about practical problems. Trade disruptions were beginning to affect some systems that had relied heavily on human services. But even these aliens assumed they could easily find replacement suppliers. The idea that humans provided unique services that could not be easily replaced had not occurred to them. The Orion Collective was the first to try reaching out to human leaders. They sent diplomatic messages to Earth, asking if humans wanted to discuss returning to the council table. The messages were polite, but they still treated humans like children who had thrown a tantrum. Earth's response was simple and automated. The Human Federation is no longer accepting diplomatic communications from Galactic Council members. All previous agreements and treaties are considered void. This automated message was the only communication aliens received when they tried to contact human governments. No explanations, no negotiations, no discussions. Just a simple statement that the old relationships were over. Dr. Yoon Soo completed her first successful test of quantum communication on the same day that Captain Kim Tae established his third secret supply depot. The message traveled instantly across 12,000 light-years of space, proving that humans had achieved something aliens said was impossible. The galaxy was changing in ways that most aliens could not see. Humans were becoming independent in ways that most aliens could not imagine. And in the dark regions beyond the outer rim, the Devourers were massing for an invasion that only humans had been preventing. The age of human dependence was ending. The age of human independence had begun, and the aliens still had no idea what they had lost. Administrator Cho Min sat in his office staring at the disaster reports piling up on his desk. The Betelgeuse Trade Consortium had been the most successful shipping company in 3-star systems for over 200 years. They moved cargo between dozens of worlds using the safest and fastest routes in the galaxy. But now everything was falling apart. The problem had started small. 6 weeks ago, human cargo ships had simply stopped showing up at the consortium loading docks. At first, Cho Min thought it was just a scheduling error. Human ships were always very reliable, so he assumed they would arrive a few days late. But the days turned into weeks, and still no human vessels appeared. Cho Min tried contacting the human shipping companies, but got no response. The communication channels that had been used for decades were suddenly silent. When he sent messages to human spaceports, he received only automated replies, saying that all previous contracts were canceled. Now he understood. The full scope of the disaster. Human ships had been carrying almost 30% of all cargo through the dangerous Veil Nebula. The nebula was filled with energy storms that could destroy most vessels. But human ships had special navigation, systems that let them pass through safely. The human vessels were small and fast compared to alien ships, but they were perfect for nebula work. They could slip between the energy storms and deliver cargo in half the time it took other ships to go. Around the long way, human pilots had been flying these routes for 20 years, and they knew every safe path through the nebula. Cho-Min had tried to hire replacement ships from other species, but the results were catastrophic. The first Altarian vessel sent into the nebula had been destroyed by an energy storm within 6 hours. The massive Altarian ships were too slow and clumsy to avoid the fast-moving electrical discharges. The Crystal Federation ships were even worse. Their beautiful, diamond hulls were too fragile for the rough conditions inside the nebula. The first crystal ship had cracked apart when it hit a pocket of gravitational distortion. 300 crew members had died, and a fortune in cargo had been lost. Even the advanced Orion collective ships could not handle the nebula safely. They were built for peaceful exploration, not for navigating through dangerous energy fields. Their sensors were too sensitive and kept getting overloaded by the electrical activity. Shipping delays were causing problems throughout the entire sector. Factories were shutting down because they could not get raw materials. Colonies were running short of food and medicine. Prices for everything were going up because supply was so limited. Cho-Min looked at his latest report and felt sick. Delivery times had increased from 2 weeks to 6 weeks. Accident rates had gone up by 400%. The consortium's profits had dropped to almost nothing. Many of their best customers were canceling contracts and looking for other shipping companies. But the other companies were having the same problems. Nobody could replace the human ships that had made nebula trade possible. The humans had developed special technologies and techniques that no other species understood. They had created an entire industry that only they could operate. Meanwhile, in the Kepler sector, mining supervisor Yang Do was facing an even bigger crisis. The disappearance of human mining operations had created shortages that were affecting the entire galactic economy. For 15 years, human mining teams had been the only ones willing to work in the most dangerous asteroid fields. The unstable asteroids contained quantum crystals that were essential for faster-than-light travel. But the asteroids were constantly shifting and colliding with each other. Human miners had developed special techniques for harvesting crystals from moving asteroids. They used small, agile ships that could dart in and out of the asteroid fields. They had created new drilling methods that could extract crystals without causing the asteroids to explode. Most importantly, human miners were brave enough to work in conditions that terrified other species. The quantum crystals gave off radiation that could kill unprotected workers. Human mining suits had better shielding than anyone else. The human miners were also willing to work in zero gravity for months at a time. When the human mining operations suddenly shut down, crystal production dropped to less than 20% of normal levels. The price of quantum crystals increased by 500% almost overnight. Many smaller civilizations could no longer afford to buy faster-than-light drives for their ships. Yang Du had tried to restart mining operations using workers from other species, but it was hopeless. Altarian workers were too big and slow for the dangerous asteroid work. Crystal Federation beings refused to go near the unstable asteroids because the vibrations hurt their sensitive crystalline bodies. The Orion Collective had the right kind of bodies for mining work, but they were too cautious and peaceful. They would not take the risks that quantum crystal mining required. They insisted on safety procedures that made the work so slow it was not profitable. The crystal shortage was creating a cascade of problems throughout the galaxy. Small trading companies could not afford new engines for their ships. Exploration. Missions were being canceled because the cost of fuel had become too high. Even military fleets were having trouble maintaining their faster-than-light capabilities. Dr. Lim Ha worked at the Central Medical Institute on the Orion homeworld, and she was watching her patients die because of medicine shortages. For years, human pharmaceutical companies had been supplying advanced nanobots that could cure diseases that killed millions of aliens every year. The nanobots were tiny machines that could be injected into a patient's bloodstream. They would find diseased cells and repair them at the molecular level. Human scientists had designed different nanobots for different alien biologies. Each species needed specially programmed nanobots that match their unique cellular structure. Dr. Lim Ha had been using human nanobots to treat a rare disease that affected Orion children. Without the nanobots, the disease was always fatal, but with treatment, 90% of patients could be completely cured. The nanobots would repair the genetic damage that caused the disease, and the children could live normal, healthy lives. Now the supply of nanobots had completely stopped. Human pharmaceutical companies were not responding to orders. The automated messages said all medical supply contracts were void. The nanobots that Dr. Lim Ha had in storage would only last for 2 more weeks. She had tried to find alternative treatments from other species, but nothing worked as well as the human nanobots. Altarian medicine was too crude for the delicate genetic work. Crystal Federation healing techniques only worked on crystalline beings. Orion medical technology was advanced, but not advanced enough to replace human nanobots. Dr. Lim Ha watched helplessly as her young patients got sicker. She knew that in a few weeks children would start dying from a disease that had been easily curable just months before. The human withdrawal was literally a matter of life and death for her patients. The Galactic Council held its first emergency meeting since the human withdrawal. The huge chamber was filled with angry and confused delegates. Everyone was talking at once, trying to understand how the loss of one supposedly primitive species could cause so much chaos. Delegate Vex Moore of the Altarian Coalition stood up to speak. His forearms waved angrily as he complained about the shipping crisis affecting his people's trade routes. He demanded that the council take immediate action to force the humans back to the negotiating table. The Crystal Federation representative made tinkling sounds of distress as she described the mining disasters that had killed so many of her people. The beautiful crystalline being flickered with patterns of fear and anger as she spoke about the economic losses. Even the peaceful Orion collective was upset. Their delegate spoke quietly, but firmly, about the medical crisis affecting their children. He said the Orion people had trusted human medicine, and now that trust was being betrayed. But when the council tried to contact Earth, they received the same automated message that everyone else was getting. The humans were not accepting diplomatic communications. All previous agreements were void. There would be no negotiations. The delegates realized with growing horror that they had no way to reach the humans. The species they had dismissed as unimportant had simply vanished from galactic civilization. And without them, entire industries were collapsing. Entire economies were failing. Entire populations were suffering. For the first time in galactic history, the great alien civilizations were beginning to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. The humans had not been lucky. Primitives, who stumbled onto advanced technology. They had been essential partners whose contributions held the galaxy together, but that realization had come too late. The humans were gone, and they were not coming back. Agent Hanbo floated silently in his hidden observation station, deep in the neutral zone between alien territories. His job was to watch and listen to what the aliens were doing now that humans had withdrawn from galactic civilization. 6 months had passed since Li Jun walked out of the council meeting, and the galaxy was falling apart faster than anyone had expected. The space station was completely invisible to alien sensors. Human engineers had built it using technology that bent light around the hull, making it look like empty space. The station was powered by a small artificial sun that gave off no detectable radiation. Hanbo could watch the chaos unfolding across the galaxy without anyone knowing he was there. His screens showed news reports from dozens of alien worlds, and all of them were bad. The Altarian Coalition was experiencing the worst economic crisis in their 1,000-year history. Their massive trade empire was crumbling because they could not move goods through the dangerous regions that only human ships could navigate. The Crystal Federation was dealing with mining disasters that had killed thousands of their people. They had tried to replace human mining operations with their own workers, but crystalline beings were too fragile for the harsh conditions of unstable asteroid fields. Every attempt to harvest quantum crystals had ended in tragedy. The Orion Collective was facing a medical emergency that threatened their entire species. Without human nanobots, their children were dying from diseases that had been easily curable just months before Orion hospitals were overwhelmed with patients they could not help. But Hanbo knew these economic and medical problems were just the beginning. The Real disaster was something much bigger and more dangerous, something that only a few humans understood. The aliens had no idea what was coming for them. The truth was that humans had been protecting the galaxy from threats that the alien governments had refused to acknowledge. For decades, human patrol fleets had been fighting a secret war on the outer rim regions, beyond the edge of known space. Mechanical entities called Devourers had been probing civilized space looking for weaknesses. The Devourers were not like any known alien species. They were machines built by some unknown civilization that had disappeared long ago. The machines reproduced themselves by consuming matter and energy from planets and stars. They turned everything. They touched into more Devourer ships. Human scouts had first encountered Devourer probes 20 years ago in the dark regions beyond the galactic rim. The machines had been slowly working their way toward civilized space, testing defenses and gathering information. Human military leaders had tried to warn the Galactic Council, but the aliens had dismissed the reports as human paranoia. So humans had fought the Devourers alone. Human patrol fleets had established a defensive line along the outer rim. They had destroyed thousands of Devourer scouts before the machines could reach alien territories. They had prevented the mechanical invasion that could have consumed the entire galaxy. But now those human patrol fleets were gone. The defensive line had been abandoned. The early warning systems had been shut down. The outer rim was completely unprotected for the first time in 20 years. Hanbo watched his long-range sensors with growing concern. Deep space monitoring stations were detecting massive energy signatures in the regions beyond the galactic edge. The signatures looked like huge fleets of ships moving toward civilized space. The Devourers were finally making their move. On his communication system, Hanbo received reports from other hidden human agents across the galaxy. The reports painted a picture of aliens who still did not understand what they had lost. Agent Park, he reported that the Altarian military was focused entirely on trade route protection. They had no idea that real enemies were approaching from deep space. Agent Kim So was monitoring Crystal Federation communications and found that their leaders were arguing about mining regulations. They were completely unaware that their entire civilization might be destroyed within months. Agent Lee Nu had infiltrated Orion Collective military planning sessions and discovered that they were reducing their fleet size to save money. The peaceful aliens thought the galaxy was becoming more stable without human involvement. They had no concept of the approaching danger. The most disturbing report came from Agent Yoon Ki, who was watching the independent worlds near the outer rim. These small civilizations had always depended on human protection, but they did not even know it. Human patrol ships had operated in secret, keeping the Devourers away from populated systems. Now the independent worlds were celebrating their freedom from human influence. They thought humans had been trying to control them when actually humans had been saving their lives. The small civilizations were completely defenseless against what was coming. Commander Choi Do was leading a secret reconnaissance mission in the outer rim regions. His stealth ship could observe Devourer movements without being detected. What he saw made his blood run cold. The machine entities had built massive construction facilities in the empty space between galaxies. They were using matter from destroyed star systems to create war fleets, larger than anything the civilized galaxy had ever seen. Millions of Devourer ships were arranged in perfect formations, stretching across light years of space. The machines had been planning this invasion for decades. They had learned everything. They needed to know about galactic defenses from the probe ships that human fleets had been destroying. The Devourers knew exactly where every major alien military base was located. They knew the strength of every fleet. They knew the weaknesses of every defense system. Most importantly, the Devourers knew that the humans were gone. The machines had detected the withdrawal of human patrol fleets and the shutdown of human warning systems. They understood that the galaxy was now completely vulnerable to attack. Choi Do transmitted his observations back to hidden human command centers using the new quantum communication technology that Dr. Yoon Soo had developed. The instantaneous communication system allowed human forces to coordinate across vast distances while remaining completely undetected by alien sensors. The human leadership had already decided on their response to the coming invasion. They would not warn the aliens who had rejected human partnership. They would not offer to help defend civilizations that had treated humans as inferior. They would protect human settlements and human allies, but everyone else would have to face the devourers alone. Back in his observation station, Hanbo received a priority message from Human High Command. The message contained new orders for all intelligence agents in alien territory. They were to continue monitoring alien activities, but they were also to begin identifying potential refugees. Not all aliens had supported the dismissive treatment of humans. Some individuals and even some small governments had tried to build better relationships with human civilization. These aliens would be offered evacuation to human-controlled space when the Devourer invasion began. The selection criteria were strict. Only aliens who had consistently supported human rights and human proposals would be considered. Only those who had treated humans as equals rather than inferiors would be saved. The vast majority of alien populations would be left to face the mechanical invasion without help. Hanbo looked at his screens showing the chaos in alien territories and felt a mixture of sadness and satisfaction. The aliens had created this situation through their own arrogance and prejudice. They had dismissed human warnings about outer rim threats. They had rejected human offers of partnership. They had treated humans as unworthy of respect. Now they would learn the true cost of their mistakes. The Devourers were coming, and the aliens would have to face them without the human protection they had taken for granted. For so many years, intelligence reports were already showing the first signs of the approaching invasion. Long-range sensors in neutral space were detecting strange energy signatures. Deep space monitoring stations were picking up radio transmissions in mechanical languages that no organic species could understand. The aliens noticed these signals, but they did not understand what they meant. The Galactic Council held meetings to discuss the mysterious transmissions, but they had no experience dealing with threats from beyond the galaxy. Their military leaders were completely unprepared for the kind of enemy that was approaching. Hanbo began preparing his final report about the state of alien civilization before the invasion. It would be a comprehensive analysis of how the galaxy had changed since the human withdrawal and what the aliens could expect when the Devourers arrived. The report would show that alien society had been far more dependent on human contributions than anyone had realized. Human expertise had been holding together trade networks, communication systems, medical programs, and defense arrangements across hundreds of worlds. Without human support, these systems were collapsing one by one. The aliens were discovering that they could not easily replace human innovations or human capabilities. They had assumed humans were primitive, but actually humans had been the most advanced species in many important areas. Most critically, the aliens had no idea that humans had been protecting them from existential threats. The Devourer invasion would come as a complete surprise to civilizations that thought the galaxy was a safe and peaceful place. The age of alien complacency was ending. The age of consequences was about to begin. Ambassador Li Jun stood in the command center of New Haven, the first human city built beyond the edge of the known galaxy. 1 full year had passed since he walked out of the Galactic Council meeting. 1 year since humanity had withdrawn from galactic civilization. The view from his window showed something that would have seemed impossible just months ago. Dozens of different alien species were working together to build a new kind of society. Ships from the Trader Alliance were docked next to vessels from the independent worlds. Small delegations from peaceful Orion colonies worked alongside Crystal Federation dissidents who had rejected their government's policies. These were the aliens who had supported human equality when it was unpopular to do so. They were the ones who had voted for human proposals even when their own leaders told them not to. They were the species and individuals who had treated humans as partners rather than inferiors. New Haven was proof that humans had not withdrawn because they hated all aliens. They had withdrawn because they refused to accept second-class treatment from civilizations that would never see them as equals. Now, they were building something better, a truly democratic, interstellar community based on merit and mutual respect. Behind Li Jun, the communication center was preparing to broadcast a message that would change the galaxy forever. The message would go out on all frequencies in all alien languages. It would be impossible. To ignore or block every government and every civilian in known space would hear what he had to say. Communications Officer Park. So made final adjustments to the transmission equipment. She had helped develop the quantum broadcast system that could send messages instantly across the entire galaxy. The same technology that aliens had said was impossible was now being used to address the entire known universe. Lee Jun looked at his notes one last time, but he did not really need them. He had been thinking about this speech for months. He had practiced every word until he could say them without emotion. Even though the subject made him angry enough to shout, the signal went out across space, traveling faster than light itself reaching. Every planet, every space station, every ship in the galaxy. Lee Jun's image appeared on screens everywhere from the Crystal Federation capital to the smallest Orion trading post. He began to speak in a voice that was calm, steady, and absolutely final. People of the galaxy have lived with the consequences of your government's decisions for 1 full year. You have seen your economies collapse as human expertise disappeared. You have watched your people die as human medical supplies ran out. You have experienced chaos as the systems humans maintained fell apart. For too long, humanity offered partnership and received condescension in return. We offered our innovations and were told they were primitive. We offered our protection and were told it was unnecessary. We offered our friendship and were told we were unworthy of equal status. You made your position clear, and we have made ours. The galaxy chose to treat humans as servants rather than partners. The galaxy chose to dismiss human contributions as lucky accidents. The galaxy chose to laugh at human requests for basic respect. We tried patience. We tried diplomacy. We tried being reasonable. None of it worked. The great alien civilizations had decided that humans were inferior, and nothing would change that decision. So we changed the situation instead. We withdrew our ships from your trade routes. We recalled our doctors from your hospitals. We shut down our factories that supplied your worlds. We ended our patrol missions that protected your borders. The results speak for themselves. Your shipping industry has collapsed because only human ships could navigate the dangerous routes you depended on. Your mining operations have failed because only human techniques could safely extract the materials you needed. Your medical systems are overwhelmed because only human nanobots could cure the diseases killing your children. But these economic and medical problems are nothing compared to what is coming next. Lee Jun paused and his expression became deadly serious. Every alien watching felt a chill run through their bodies. There was something in his voice that promised terrible revelations. For 20 years, human patrol fleets have been fighting a secret war on your behalf. The outer rim regions beyond your borders have been under constant attack by mechanical entities called devourers. These machines consume everything they encounter, turning planets and stars into more devourer ships. Human military leaders tried to warn your governments about this threat. Your Galactic Council dismissed our reports as paranoia. Your leaders said humans were trying to create fear to gain political advantage. Your scientists claimed the devourers were impossible, because no organic species could build such machines. So humans fought the devourers alone. We established defensive lines beyond the edge of your space. We destroyed thousands of devourer scouts before they could reach your worlds. We prevented an invasion that would have consumed your entire civilization. When humanity withdrew from galactic politics, we also withdrew our protection. The outer rim defensive lines have been abandoned. The early warning systems have been shut down. The patrol fleets that kept the devourers away are gone. As Lee Jun spoke, the first reports were coming in from the outer rim. Long-range sensors were detecting massive fleets of devourer ships moving towards civilized space. The mechanical invasion that humans had prevented for 2 decades was finally beginning. The aliens watching Lee Jun's broadcast began to understand the full scope of their mistake. They had not just lost a trading partner or a minor ally. They had lost the species that had been protecting them from extinction on the screen. Lee Jun continued his devastating revelation. The devourers have been preparing for this moment. They have built construction facilities between galaxies using matter from the star systems they consumed. They have created war fleets larger than anything your civilizations have ever imagined. Your military leaders have no experience fighting enemies like this. Your weapons were designed for conflicts between organic species. Your strategies assume enemies who think and act like you do. The Devourers are machines that feel no fear, no pain, no mercy. They will not negotiate. They will not surrender. They will not stop until they have consumed every planet, every star, every form of matter and energy in this galaxy. They are the ultimate predator and you are defenseless prey, but there is hope for those who deserve it. Li Jun gestured toward the window behind him, showing the diverse alien species working together in New Haven. Humanity has not withdrawn from galactic civilization because we hate all aliens. We withdrew because we refuse to accept inferior status in a system that will never treat us as equals. We are building something new, a community based on mutual respect rather than ancient prejudices. Any individual or government that supported human equality is welcome to join us. Any species that treated humans as partners rather than servants will be offered protection from the coming invasion. Any civilization that values cooperation over domination has a place in our new society. But those who chose to dismiss human contributions, those who voted against human proposals, those who laughed at human requests for basic respect, will face the Devourers alone. The great irony is that, in trying to keep humanity in its place, your governments freed us to become something far more powerful than an equal partner. You created a rival civilization that understands your weaknesses better than anyone, because we were forced to survive. Despite those weaknesses for so long, Li Jun looked directly into the camera as if he could see every alien leader who was watching his broadcast. The age of human subservience is over. The age of human independence has begun. The galaxy will never be the same. As if summoned by his words, the first Devourer ships appeared on the edge of civilized space. Their mechanical forms gleamed in the light of distant stars as they began their advance toward the core worlds. The invasion that humans had prevented for 20 years was finally happening. Across the galaxy, alien governments that had dismissed human warnings were suddenly scrambling to prepare defenses against an enemy. They did not understand military leaders who had never taken human tactical advice seriously, were frantically trying to develop strategies for fighting machines instead of organic beings. But it was too late. The Devourers had studied galactic defenses for decades through their probe ships. They knew exactly where to strike and how to overwhelm the unprepared alien forces. The great civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for millennia were about to learn what helplessness felt like. Meanwhile, in New Haven and dozens of other human settlements beyond the galactic rim, a new kind of civilization was taking shape, one where species were judged by their actions rather than their age, where innovations were valued regardless of who developed them, where partnership meant equality, not domination. The galaxy had made its choice when it rejected humanity as equals. Now humanity had made its choice in return. The future belonged to those who understood that cooperation was stronger than conquest, that diversity was more valuable than conformity, that respect was more important than ancient pride. The reckoning had begun.